Mileena's entire reason for being alive is to become Kitana, and the franchise created her for that exact purpose. They've spent exactly 3 decades making sure she fails at it. Every single time. Across all these timelines, she's been a spy, an empress, a corpse, and a DLC. So what happened? How do you build a character around one job and then punish her for 30 years straight trying to do it? Here's the thing. She's probably too perfect for the role. After all the tests she was put through across the timelines, Mileena actually sat on the Outworld throne, and the franchise's response was to have an insect woman kiss her to death. We're going to get to how that happened, but you need to understand the 30 years of denial that led to that moment first, because Mileena was never going to be allowed to win. Mileena didn't ask to exist. That sounds like a cliche, but with her, it's the plot. Shao Kahn got paranoid that Kitana, who is his stolen, or even better, kidnapped daughter, might eventually figure out the truth and turn on him. So he told Shang Tsung to build a backup as a loyal copy with Kitana's face and none of her inconvenient free will. Shang Tsung took Kitana's essence, mixed it with Tarkatan DNA, and cooked up Mileena in the flesh pits. The result was almost perfect. Almost. Until her face came out wrong. A mouthful of razor-sharp Tarkatan teeth that she had to hide behind a veil. She looked like Kitana from the neck down and like a nightmare from the nose down. That defect was one visible reminder that she wasn't the original, and it would follow her across every game, timeline, and version of her story. The problem is, Shao Kahn didn't even use her for the thing she was built for. He was supposed to swap her in for Kitana, but he made her a babysitter. Her job during Mortal Kombat 2 was to spy on Kitana and report back if her sister showed signs of disloyalty. We legit saw Mileena's grand purpose downgraded to surveillance before she'd even had her first fight. But the first fight did happen in a weird way, because Kitana killed her as she found out Mileena was spying. Mileena's first arc in the franchise ended with her creator treating her as a disposable paper, and her sister treating her as a threat to be eliminated. Everyone did move on, and what followed was a cycle that would repeat for the next decade and a half of games. Mileena dies and gets resurrected by whoever needs a warm body until Shinnok dragged her out of the Netherrealm in Trilogy to spy during Shao Kahn's Earthrealm invasion. This time, she helps Shinnok invade Edenia in Mortal Kombat Gold and gets beaten by Kitana again. She got locked in an Edenian prison. Then Onaga, the Dragon King, shows up during Deception, and Baraka, who is an ally to him, frees Mileena from prison and also gives her a new job, which is to pose as Kitana and mislead the princess's armies. Mileena accepted this role because pretending to be Kitana was the closest she had ever come to achieving the legitimacy she was created for. But she actually started considering taking those armies for herself, because in Armageddon, she seized Shao Kahn's fortress under the guise of Kitana, using the Edenian forces in the name of peace. She was going to keep the disguise going until the troops were loyal enough to follow her as Mileena. She finally had a plan. But Shao Kahn showed up with Goro and Shang Tsung to take it all back. Mileena's bad decisions weren't bad decisions. She allied with Onaga, Baraka, and whoever would have her, because the franchise made sure she had 0 legitimate options. And when your choices are serve someone who sees you as a tool, or ally with someone sketchy who at least pretends to respect you, the sketchy alliance makes sense every time. She was desperate and not stupid, but the franchise kept writing her into corners where desperation was the only reasonable response. The original timeline treated Mileena like a wrench in a toolbox, and she spent the entire classic era getting used. But the next reboot started as a clean slate, and it was a chance to fix her problem. Mortal Kombat 9 takes Mileena's initial origin and strips away the last shred of dignity. In the original timeline, she'd at least been raised alongside Kitana and there was history there. But this reboot scraps that. This time, she was created as a fully grown adult. She wakes up in the flesh pit and Kitana discovers her there like finding a science project someone hid in the basement. The scene where Kitana walks into Shang Tsung's lab and sees the Mileena clone is one of the most important moments in the reboot story, because it made us understand that the writers were telling who they think Mileena is, and she's a monster with a backstory. Which makes more sense to me. Shao Kahn's invasion of Earthrealm fails, and he gets killed by the Elder Gods, and the Outworld throne sat empty until Mileena claimed it. For the first and only time in franchise history, she had what she was built for. Mortal Kombat 10 picks up the story, but unfortunately for her, her reign lasted about as long as a sneeze. Mileena was, by most accounts, a terrible empress. She was cruel in ways that made the Outworld political class nervous, but the reason she lost the throne was biology. Kotal Khan staged a coup, and the justification was clean, to be honest. Mileena was a clone, and her claim to the throne was a fabrication, same as her. The franchise gave her the crown, then used her own origin as the legal basis for taking it away. Mileena can't win, because the thing that makes Mileena is the thing the franchise uses to disqualify her. I think it's a very good structural trap with no exit. Anyways, after Kotal Khan's coup, Mileena goes underground and initiates a civil war to reclaim the throne. She hires the mercenary Kano to assist her cause, and she forms alliances with Rain and Tanya. She gets her hands on Shinnok's amulet, which is a one last shot at reclaiming the throne. D'Vorah volunteers to retrieve Shinnok's amulet from Mileena's rebel camp, and Cassie Cage tags along. They find the camp in the Kwatan jungle and find Mileena inside a tent, clinging to the amulet like it's the last thing she'll ever hold. It is, actually. But a subscription to the channel is a way to keep me going. D'Vorah fights Mileena and wins, then she takes the amulet and drags Mileena back to Kotal Khan in chains. Kotal Khan gives D'Vorah the nod, more like a go ahead, and Mileena's last words are crazy. She was like,
"Enough of your prattle. Finish me, that I may join my father."
She's talking about Shao Kahn, who ordered her creation and never loved her. Even in her final breath, she's reaching for a family connection that was never real. D'Vorah kills her with a kiss and unleashes parasitic insects that eat Mileena's face from the inside. It's one of the most disturbing deaths in a franchise built on disturbing deaths. Mortal Kombat 11 launches in April 2019, and Mileena is not on the roster because, yeah, she's dead. The writers had wrapped up her story with D'Vorah's kiss and moved on. The base roster included Kitana and D'Vorah. Mileena was gone. But the fan base didn't accept that. What happened next was interesting. Twitter, now X, became a war zone. Every time Ed Boon posted anything, the replies flooded with Mileena requests until Boon started trolling back, dropping hints that went nowhere, putting her moves on Kitana, and was like, "She's here in spirit." The community didn't find it funny, and they found it insulting. Until Kombat Pack 2 was announced. Rain, Rambo, and Mileena were present. It was more like the writers were done with her, but the community said no. Or maybe it was part of their plans all along. Her arcade ending told us everything we needed to know about what she actually wanted. She defeats Kronika and becomes the Keeper of Time, and also kills Kitana, saying she wanted to be family with her, but Kitana wanted her dead. So she used Kronika's to take her place. The last image during this is Mileena cradling a daughter with Tanya. I personally think this is a perfect ending for a villain, and this barely happens in this type of game. And then, the franchise got a do-over nobody asked for. Liu Kang became a Keeper of Time in the new era, and he changes Mileena's identity. This time, she's Kitana's biological sister, and she's also the legitimate heir to the Outworld throne. Tanya, her romantic partner, is the head of the Umgadi Royal Guard. In this timeline, she has legitimacy, love, and power, except she has Tarkat disease. This is a condition slowly giving her the same Tarkatan features that defined her clone in the old timeline. The problem is, she has to hide this condition from the public, because if Outworld finds out the future Empress is infected, her claim to the throne collapses. Sound familiar? The franchise replaced "you're not a real person" with "you have a disease you're ashamed of." And to manage her condition, she's dependent on a suppressant developed by Shang Tsung. The same sorcerer who created her in the old timeline is now her pharmacist in the new one. He gives the medicine to Tanya to administer, positioning himself as indispensable to the royal family. Her political future was all tied to a man who's conspiring against her mother behind closed doors. During the story, the disease flares up at the worst moments, and she loses control during the tournament. Earthrealm's champions see her transform and assume Shang Tsung is attacking her, so they stop him from administering the cure. She goes feral, and Kenshi loses his eyes in the chaos. Her condition started to hurt the people around her. Liu Kang was supposed to design this timeline to be better, but for Mileena, he just found a more creative way to make her ashamed of what she is. There is a counterpoint, and it's worth being honest about. Mortal Kombat 1 Mileena has something no version of her has ever had: people who stay. Kitana doesn't reject her, Sindel protects her, and Tanya loves her openly. When Sindel is fatally wounded in battle, she appoints Mileena as her successor. And her canonical arcade ending in Mortal Kombat 1 is the first time the franchise lets Mileena make the brave choice on her own terms. She goes public about her Tarkat disease, meets with Baraka and visits the Tarkatan colony. She sees how they live, and she reveals her affliction to all of Outworld to prove that even an empress can be infected. and uses that vulnerability to advocate for the Tarkatans. So, did the MK1 reboot actually fix Mileena, or did it just give her a different cage? What version of Mileena did you like? Anyways, that's it for now. If you sat through all of this, hit the subscribe button. And don't forget to make a character request you'd like to see in the comment section. I'm Joe, and I'll see you in the next one.